You know, losing a fortune, that's a tough story, right? But losing a massive fortune twice, that is a whole other level. Today, we're talking about a man whose creations are, literally, the engine of American industry, and yet, he died completely broke. This is the wild story of William "Billy" Durant.
So let's just start right there. When a guy like JP Morgan, the JP Morgan, calls you an unstable visionary, you know you're dealing with someone special. And that one line, it just nails the paradox of William Durant, a mind that could see the future, but a personality so ambitious it was both his superpower and his kryptonite.
And that's really the big question we're tackling. How does the guy who put together General Motors, who basically invented the modern car company, end up with nothing? It's an incredible story of genius, huge risks, and, well, a pattern that just kept repeating itself.
So, to figure out how he lost it all, we've got to go back to the beginning. And Durant's story doesn't start with cars. Nope, it starts with horse-drawn carts. See, the guy was a born salesman, someone who just had a nose for the next big thing.
What's just wild is how fast this all happened. It all kicks off in 1886. He takes a ride in a horse-drawn cart, loves the suspension, and borrows some cash to buy the company. By 1900, just 14 years later, boom, he's the biggest cart maker in the country. Then he sees cars, jumps in, grabs a struggling company called Buick, and by 1908, he's created General Motors. It's just an unbelievably fast climb.
And you gotta remember, he was already a huge success before he ever touched a car. He'd made his fortune in carriages. But for a guy like Durant, that was old news. He was already getting bored, looking for that next thrill, that next mountain to climb.
And this is where you really see his genius, his kind of crazy thinking for the time. This idea of a conglomerate of car brands, nobody was doing that. People thought, why would you own your own competition? But Durant got it. He saw that different brands could capture different parts of the market. It was a revolutionary idea that is just standard business practice today.
But you know how it goes. When you grow that fast, you make some powerful people, let's just say, uncomfortable. And that brings us to his first big fall from grace, and what might be the greatest comeback story in business history. He was just buying up companies left and right, Cadillac, Oldsmobile, you name it. The bankers who were funding this spree got seriously nervous. They're looking at the books, seeing a mountain of debt, and thinking, this guy is flying way too close to the sun. So they teamed up and pushed him out of the very company he had created.
But you just don't keep a guy like Billy Durant down. Anyone else would have walked away, not him. He teams up with a famous race car driver, Louis Chevrolet, genius marketing, right? And starts a brand new car company. He turns Chevrolet into an absolute cash cow, and then, get this, he uses those profits to secretly start buying up GM stock. By 1916, he walks into a board meeting and announces, guess what, fellas? I own the place again. It was just unbelievably bold.
And when he gets back in the driver's seat, he is determined not to let that happen again. He starts buying everything, parts suppliers, electronics companies, you name it. He builds an empire within an empire, a fortress where he controls every single step of making and selling a car. It was more powerful than ever.
He was on top of the world. Again. But that unstable visionary part of him, well, it was still there. History was about to repeat itself. But this time, the ending was going to be very, very different.
So in 1920, it happens again. He's out. But look at the difference. The first time, it was bankers worried he was growing too fast. This time, it was a major stockholder, Pierre Dupont, who was fed up with Durant gambling on the stock market. And the first time, he got to stay on as a VP. This time, the door was slammed shut, for good.
So what does he do? You're not going to believe it. He tries to pull the exact same move a second time. In 1921, he starts another company, Durant Motors, to go head-to-head with GM and Ford. The sheer audacity is just incredible. But this time, he was trying to take down a monster that he himself had built.
And maybe, just maybe, he could have done it. But then came 1929. The stock market crashes. The Great Depression begins. To try and save his company, Durant does what he always does. He doubles down. He starts pouring his own money, his entire personal fortune, into buying his company's stock to keep it afloat. In 6 months, he personally lost $90 million. In 1929 money, it's just a staggering, unimaginable amount.
But you can't fight a hurricane with a bucket. It was a noble effort, but the Great Depression was just too powerful a force. By 1933, it was all over. Durant Motors went bankrupt, and William Durant's career as an auto titan was officially finished.
So that's it, right? He's lost it all. Twice. You'd think he'd just fade away. But the final chapter of his life is maybe the most surprising, and it tells you everything you need to know about his unstoppable spirit.
He pivots to bowling. Yeah, bowling. He had this vision for a national chain of slick, family-friendly bowling alleys. He even opened up one of the very first drive-through fast food joints right next to one. The guy just couldn't stop trying to build the next big thing, even if the scale was a little smaller.
But his health finally gave out. A stroke in 1942 ended his career for good. And for the last few years of his life, this man, this titan who founded General Motors, had to rely on financial help from old colleagues just to get by. He passed away in 1947, basically a poor man.
And that's the real twist in this story, isn't it? He lost all the money, but his ideas won. That vision for a multi-brand company, for controlling your supply chain, for how a modern dealership works, that became the blueprint not just for the car industry, but for all of American industry.
So it leaves you with this one last question to chew on. William Durant couldn't hold on to his own money, but his ideas made fortunes for thousands of other people and totally changed the world we live in. So what really matters more in the end? The fortune you keep or the vision you share?